Hello! Today I've got a super quick tutorial for you, and it's to fit a light switch into the shed. Let me see how close I can bring that. So we've got a little light switch there and we've got some wiring running from it. It's very simple to make. I'll tell you what you need as we go along, and there isn't even a cut in this time, so we can just get straight on with it. Okay, so we're going to begin by making the base for the light switch. So using 1.5mm thick, 1/16 of an inch thick wood, cut a piece that is 7mm square, well, that's 9/32 of an inch square. And then holding that in your hand, just use your fine grade sandpaper just to bevel over each edge. So you're just holding the sandpaper at an angle and sweeping it across the edge. Do that on all sides. Okay, like that. And then instead of varnishing this piece, I'm going to use this pen, which is called a stain marker, or a wood finish stain marker. And this is a dark walnut, and these are really handy for these sort of smaller pieces. It's actually made for touching up wood on full-size furniture, but ideal for this sort of miniature work. And this is made by a company called Min Wax. I'm sure there are other makes. If you just sort of searched for wood finish stain marker, just pop that into Google, I'm sure you'll come up with something. Now these are very toxic, and there is even a warning on the packet that you must use them with the window open, or preferably out in the fresh air. But I've got my window open here. You can probably hear the birds actually. I hope you can, because they sound lovely. So I've just put myself a bit of masking tape fixed there, sort of sticky side up, onto a piece of card. I'm just going to stick that on there, just on the edge like that. And then these need to have a good shake first before you use them, like most markers. And then just pop a bit of colour on there. Make sure you get around all the edges. Lovely nice dark walnut colour. Okay, so I'm going to leave that to dry, and it won't take long because it's such a tiny piece. And then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so that's now dry, so we can now attach the switch. And I've just put this card down so you can see a bit more clearly, just because this is such a tiny project. So pop that there. And then for the actual switch, I'm using one of these wooden beads. And I bought this pack from eBay, and they're 4mm diameter and about 3mm high. If you just searched for round wooden beads, you'll probably find something like this. They're quite common. And I'm using one of the black beads for my light, and I've just chosen, though they're sort of 4mm diameter, some in the pack are a little bit smaller, so I've chosen the smallest one I could find. And it hasn't got too big a hole in the centre there either. Now you might want to use tweezers for this part. So I've just dispensed some glue here onto a piece of card. I'm using this cocktail stick to apply it. So just apply it to the back of the bead. And then just attach it just by eye centrally to your wooden back plate or surround. So pop that on there, push it down, and I'm just going to let that dry off a little bit before the glue begins to take. And then I don't know if you've seen these old-fashioned switches, but they have a little switch in the middle of that round bit there. And for that I'm actually using, this is a bristle from an old plastic hairbrush. But you just need something really thin that you can pop in the middle of the bead there to use as a switch. And I don't want the bobble on the end, that would be far too large. So I'm going to trim from this other end, And I think I can probably cut this with scissors. And I just want it to be about 5mm long. The bead is about 3mm high, so then I'll have a couple of millimetres sticking out as the switch. So I'm just going to trim that and hold on to the end that you're cutting off, as it's likely to just sort of ping off across your work table. Again, let me just get hold of that in the tweezers. It's got a bit of a frayed end, one end, so I'm just going to trim that off as well. Like that. And then just apply a tiny little dab of glue. I'm so worried about this sort of pinging off and not being able to find it. And then just pop it in there. And that would normally be at a bit of an angle, whether it's sort of on or off. So angle it if you can, but if you can't, really don't worry. It's too sort of tiny a detail to spend too much time on. Okay, so use a clean cocktail stick to remove the glue from around the edges of the switch there. And you might just want to use your tweezers again just to hold the switch in place while you're doing that. If you're like me and don't allow the glue sort of proper drying time, you might just move the switch out of place. So clean that up like that. Okay, and there's the completed switch. Okay, so we can now attach the light switch into the shed. I'm just going to turn it on its side like that. So again, use your tweezers to hold the light switch with. Just apply glue to the back. And then you don't really have to measure, but just sort of stick it to the side of the door there. And by eye, just try and get it as straight as you can. Like that. I think that's about right. And then press it into place. Just hold it for a moment while the glue begins to take. Keep sort of checking that it's straight before the glue completely sets. Okay, let's just turn that round the right way and have a look. I think that's about right. It's because you can't sort of look directly at it, it's really difficult to tell. I think that looks good. And then you can just go in there again with your clean cocktail stick and remove the excess glue from around the edge. Okay, and then you can leave it like that, but just to add to the realism, I want to put some wiring in. So let me just move this shed out of the way and then I'll show you what I'm going to use for that. Okay, so I've got here one of these doll's house lighting sockets, and I've got quite a few of these that I don't need, so I'm going to use the wire from this. And you can use white if you want, but I want all the wiring in my shed to be black so it doesn't stand out as much. So I'm going to use a permanent marker to colour it with. So I've got my piece of sheet here again, and I'm not going to cut the wire yet, I'm going to colour it first. So just lay that flat on your piece of card and then just colour it in. And you only need to get one side, but make sure you get along the edges as well. So really press the marker down on it. And there's so many things you could use for this wiring. Maybe you could find a black paper clip or some sort of black wire, or any sort of wire. It doesn't need to be black, you could just use a normal sort of aluminium or steel wire, fuse wire, anything like that. And it's one of those tiny little details that some people won't notice, but it really does add to the scene when you add things like this. So I hope you will give the wiring a go. Right, so I'm going to let that dry, and then we'll cut it to size and stick it in place. Okay, so that's now dry. So I've got the shed here again. I'm just going to turn it on its side, and I'm just going to measure sort of in situ how long I need that to be. So I want it to go from the lip at the edge of that table, and then obviously up to the start of the switch surround. I'm just sort of making a little crease with my fingernail so I know where to cut. And then you can just snip with the craft knife, and then use your fingers to make sure that it's flat and sort of lying straight, whatever sort of wire you're using, and then just apply a tiny little bit of glue to the back there. I'm just going to use my tweezers for this bit again, and then just pop that into place, hold it in place, get in there with your finger and press it down. And I'm just using my wood glue again to secure that in place. Just press it flat with the tweezers. So there's the completed light switch and wire. And I think you'll agree that wiring does make a difference to the overall look, rather than just a sort of light switch being stuck there with nothing actually going to it. And then what I'm going to do is continue that wiring underneath the work table, and we'll attach a little plug socket there, or underneath there we'll feed the wiring round. So we'll have a practice at some plug sockets. We can put a couple of those in our shed, maybe one over here or something. So although I've done this for the shed project, this is a little project that you could use for other things, your doll's house or other miniature scenes. And I just want to show you another couple that I've made. They come in pairs or sets of 4, and I think I've even seen them larger than that in particularly old houses. I think I've seen up to 8 on a panel. So exactly the same principle, just cut your wood bigger. You can just lay your beads out in the sort of formation you want them and then cut. I think you can even get sort of strips of 4. But anyway, it's your doll's house, your scene, so you can do it exactly how you like. Even if they don't come like that, you can make them like that. So just another little project that can be used for other things. And I hope you've enjoyed it. If so, please do subscribe to the channel. There's lots more to come. Lots more projects coming to fill the shed, as well as other tutorials. And do have a look at my Facebook page as well, because there's a link on there to the group, Little Bits and Pieces by You, where you can share photographs of the things that you've made by following my tutorials, or from any of my 3 books, which you may have. If you don't have the books, please do have a look. They're all available from Amazon, and I'm going to pop a couple of links below. If you enjoy making furniture and miniatures, I think you'll enjoy them. And for now, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.